Let's move on to our last subject. What are we covering in our last subject tonight, Mark?
Well, this is a little bit more about the technical issues surrounding Obamacare. And one of the things that Obamacare did that really wasn't that well publicized before it went into effect.
You mean the 21 taxes that nobody knew about?
Well, they were in the law.
They were in the law. Did you have a chance to read it before you voted for it?
I didn't vote on it. So.
I didn't vote for it, but I know Nancy Pelosi said, well, we've got to pass it, then we'll find out what's in it.
Well, yeah.
Okay, so we got that part. So what is this? What are you talking about tonight,
so
Mark?
Obamacare is a 3.8% surtax
on what?
On investment income.
Does that include homes?
It include homes. It include homes.
Did everyone know that they now have a sales tax if they sell their home?
Well, now they know.
Now they know.
They'll find out soon enough.
They'll find out the first time they sell their home.
Okay, now what's interesting about it, it only applies to people making more than $200,000 adjusted annual income, but if you did sell a house...
Should be making more than $200,000.
Well, it depends, but in most places you'd probably sell your house for more $200,000.
Yeah.
Now, also, what makes this even more interesting, I mean, just this last year, the top capital gains tax went from 15 to 20%, right? For individuals' incomes of $400,000 or more per year. So if you sold a house for $400,000, you get hit with both of those increases. So investors now would be facing a 23.8 tax on a net investment income. So that's a 58% increase from 2012. So if you sold in 2012, you would have saved yourself 58% of your tax. So
you know, Mark, that's shocking.
Well,
what can you do to protect yourself for that?
Okay, so one thing you could do is a charitable remainder trust.
Okay, Charitable Remainder Trust is a trust that's non-revocable, that involves monies that are be donated to charities throughout a certain period of time, and you have the ability to set the value of the trust at the time you set up the trust. Is that what it is? Well,
what you do is that you transfer the property to the trust, right?
Correct.
It's sold, and the proceeds are paid out in annual payments, at least 5% of the trust value.
But the proceeds are being paid to a charity.
No, during your lifetime, you get the proceeds.
You get the proceeds during your lifetime, but then it changed. That's why they call it a Charitable Remainder Trust.
But then when you die,
that's the remainder.
The remainder goes to the charity.
Okay, got it.
So basically, you can take it, 5% each year, you can take that, and then so the value of the trust at the trustor's death then goes to the selected charity. Okay,
so now, so during your lifetime, you can have a distribution based on basically an estimated value, because I do know that there were some examples. If you started with, say, 50,000 shares of stock and they have a value of $100,000, and you set the value at $100,000, even if that stock goes up to $1 million, it's still, when it's coming out during the distribution, it's still valued as though it's $100,000. Is that the way the IRS is looking at it, or?
Well, in this case, let's take a simpler case. Let's say you had a house,
yes,
or a vacation home, okay, and then you want to use some of that, but you don't want to pay the 3.8% Obamacare penalty or tax.
Correct.
Okay.
And who does?
So, well, people who support Obamacare want to pay higher taxes.
Of course they do. We all do. And that's why I wrote my check right before the show. I mailed that in to the president and said, here's my cut this month. Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, so once the property has been transferred to the trust, it's sold. And then the proceeds are paid out in annual payments of 5%. So for the next 20 years, you get your 5%. And then if you pass away, whatever the remainder is, that goes to your selected charity.
Okay, now, so that's why it's non-revocable, so that the remainder must go to a selected charity.
Right. Now, the tax advantage is that trusts can sell the appreciated property without incurring the 3.8% Obamacare tax. So, like, say someone bought a vacation home for $200,000 and they sell for 1.2, right? Because it went up in value.
Right.
Then that income's, you're making $1 million on this, right? So in order to get away from that, you can do this charitable remainder trust.
Say, how much of the trust can you distribute it to yourself during your lifetime?
You do annual payments of 5%. So
5% of the total value of the trust.
Right.
So that means typically, if your total value of the trust is $1 million, you get 5% issued each year while you're still alive.
Right.
Is there an age restriction on when you can start taking distribution from your charitable trust?
No, I don't think there is.
There's no age distribution.
But so you're still going to get the beneficiaries are still subject to capital gains owed. but you still have smaller payments. Tax will be spread over a longer period of
But
time.
wait a minute, the beneficiaries are a charity, is that correct? And if they're nonprofit, why would they have any responsibility?
No,
to
but
pay?
I mean, you're the beneficiary because you're taking that 5%.
You're the beneficiary.
So you're still going to be having to pay the capital gains.
Okay, but
you can't get away from the capital gains.
Can you leave the charitable trust to a non-charity?
No.
So it has to go from the moment you pass. That now the charity stands in your position to be able to collect from the trust.
The trust rests. Yeah.
Okay, so if you're able to set up a charitable trust, can you do that when you're 30? And then you start taking distribution? Say you put in assets and you have a charitable trust. Can you start taking distribution from that or immediately, effectively? Or is there a waiting period?
Well, there's the rules are it's a 5%. So, what happens is that, you want to sell it, and that gets away from your 3.8%. And so this is a way of, getting by that 3.8%.
So technically, you get away from the 3.8% that came.
But you can't escape the capital gains.
But you can't escape the capital gains. But wait a minute, I'm under the impression that you're setting the value of the assets.
No, the asset gets sold.
No, while you're still alive. You're still setting the value, so that 5% is only based on the original value. Isn't that what it is? Or does it increase with the, say if that house that you're talking about that you put into the charitable trust, you find that house goes up $1 million, and at that point your distribution from that trust is still the 5% of the total value. But are you, because I'm under the impression that you can actually set a value at the beginning, which would be the original value of the, say, the real estate, when you put that into the trust.
Well, the thing is, once it's in the trust, it's sold, and the trust then consists of cash.
Okay, but is there a reevaluation of the value of the assets in the trust?
Well, there might be interest or whatever, however you're holding the money.
Right.
But I'm just saying the property itself, the vacation home is sold.
It's sold, but there's cash in the trust.
There's cash in the trust.
But you've made a profit. But at the initial time that you've made the property non-revocable is when you first add it to the trust. That's when, because the trust becomes non-revocable,
but then
so you can't take it out.
5% of the initial value, and as the value goes up, things can change.
Okay, so now you're saying now that you can still have capital gains tax on the value as it increases in the trust. Is that what you're saying?
No, but as you're pulling out that 5%, you're going to have to pay capital gains on that 5%.
Just on the 5%?
On the 5%.
But that's 5% versus the original value at the time you put it into the trust.
That's right.
Okay,
so, but also you're paying that over, say, 20 years or 10 years, so it's not like you're taking this big hit all at once.
Well, that could actually apply to a large portion of society, because there is a portion of society, maybe 25, 30%, they'd actually take advantage of that under this, unfortunately, this new tax that just came up. And it would seem logical.
Well, the thing is, on the other hand, is like, it kind of makes sense in a way, because let's say you're kind of retiring, right? And you have a certain amount of, set income coming in, but this would give you an opportunity to get paid for a set amount every year, and you're paying a small amount of that capital gains every year so it doesn't upset everything. And so why do you really need all that money all at once?
No, not
and then pay that huge capital gains and also pay that 3.8.
Right. In fact, the whole idea behind this is to avoid that large capital gains and just take the capital gains on the smaller amount during the distribution period while you're still alive.
Right.
And then at the end of the day, whatever the remainder is, that's why it's a remainder, goes to the charity of your choice.
Right.
Okay. Well, that sounds actually a good way for a lot of people to think about their estates. They should, this charitable trust is...
Well, you're thinking more like in a vacation home or a second home, and you don't have anyone to pass it to, and then you're going, well, I can use this for my retirement. Now, there's...
it's sort of like a reverse mortgage.
Yeah, for your vacation home.
For your vacation home,
in a way.
Right.
So there's several advantages to having a trust over just having a will. This is one of them. But so one advantage of a trust is it can start immediately. So if you're seriously injured, a trustee can manage your finance until you're able to take over again. So that's one of the things to that make trust valuable. Also, assets that pass through a trust are generally not subject to probate.
Correct.
So there's some advantages to going in the trust, and then you have like these charitable remainder trusts. There's other types of trusts that you can use, but this particular case comes up because of this new 3.8% surtax. which is a lot of money. It's $1 million.
I got to tell you, Mark, we should have a whole segment just on trust. But as far as tonight, I wanted to thank you, Mark. We had a wonderful show. And as I look out to all those that are watching us, I want to thank you and wish everybody a Happy New Year.